What's going on, boys and girls? Benjamin Bok Choi here with another episode of the Alex Albon Supervan Show. Yes, I know it's been quite a while since we've made an episode of the Alex Albon Superfan Show, but let's be honest, it's been quite a while since he's done anything that's really been worth celebrating. Now, I know he's scored quite a few points at the end of last season, or last season, I should say, and he made 2-point finishes in this season so far, and they were only P9s, and this was only a P9 at the 2024 Italian Grand Prix. But this was probably the first time I've been excited about a race in quite a while now. Going into the race week, obviously some big news. If you've been living under a rock, Williams got rid of Logan Sargent after his debacle at Zandvoort, and Franco Colapinto was taking his seat. Now, I was excited after the summer break, as they had been talking about an update package coming onto the Williams car, which seemed like it was going well for them at Zandvoort. Placed somewhat decently in the free practice sessions, and then in quali, Alex managed to qualify a P8. But then obviously he got disqualified. Logan crashed in FP3, which didn't let him participate in qualifying, and so both of these guys had to start at the back of the grid. But even so, they both showed pretty decent pace. Even Logan seemed okay. You know, it wasn't his worst race, wasn't his best race, but it wasn't his worst race either. But I don't know if he had the floor on. I don't believe he had the updated floor at Zandvoort. So we had to wait until Monza to really see how well this car would do with the new updates. And going into the free practice sessions, it looked pretty good. Even Franco Colapinto looked pretty comfortable in the car. And then in qualifying, obviously Alex managed to qualify P9 ahead of Hulkenberg and behind the top 4 teams. And Franco looked like he was heading into Q2 as well, but then he had a little off at the second Lesmo in his second run in Q1, so he had to start P17 or P18, I believe, towards the back of the grid. So yeah, it looked good. Franco being a rookie in his first race in F1, not a terrible way to start off his career with his pace in practice and qualifying. And then going into the race, things were looking good. Right off the start, Alex managed to get a decent launch. Hulkenberg started having trouble at the start of the race, so he got overtaken by Alonso right away. Now, immediately, Alex was kind of squeezed into the first chicane, almost lost a position to Alonso, but he managed to maintain P9. Started falling back a little bit almost right away. He managed to stay within DRS to Russell and Perez until lap 3, and then he fell out of that 1 second mark. So it looked like he was doing okay towards the start of the race. Now, Alonso managed to stay within DRS pretty much his entire stint, and only pitted once he fell out of DRS. And so originally, I believe Williams was planning to go plan A plus 5 laps with Alex. I think plan A would have been a 1-stopper. The strategy going into the weekend would have been 1-stopper for some teams, 2-stopper for the rest of the teams. It was really difficult to judge, as Monza had just been resurfaced, so the teams really didn't have too much data. They had data from practice, but nobody had run any races on the surface yet. And if you watch the free practice sessions, a lot of teams were having issues with the surface. Obviously, Kimi Antonelli going off at Parabolica, and then even other drivers, Ferraris and Haas's and other teams were going off as well with the new surface. So the strategy wasn't quite solid yet. But once Alonso pitted and then other cars behind Alex pitted, they kind of rushed him into the pits to box, because they were starting to come under threat of an undercut. And luckily for them, they did, because once they pitted Alex, put him onto the hard tires, he barely came out ahead of Gasly, almost having to fight Gasly off into turn 1. Now, there were some back and forths. He was having to watch out for faster cars behind. At one point, Perez and Russell had pitted and then came out behind Alex, so he had to watch out for them. Not really fighting them too hard, not really his race. And then he got passed by K-Mag, which generally would have been a concern, but K-Mag had already had a 10-second penalty for coming together with somebody else earlier on in the race. So at this point, Alex is kind of confused. He's asking the team for guidance. The team doesn't come back with him. Finally, K-Mag overtakes, and if you missed the team radio, Alex seemed pretty angry. He was upset with the indecisiveness of the team. He had asked them what to do. They didn't give him anything back. Only after K-Mag had overtaken him did they finally come back and remind him once again that Magnussen had a 10-second penalty. Then eventually Alonso pitted. Alonso was ahead of Alex, but then came out behind Alex, about 18-19 seconds so behind Alex. 20 laps left to go. The team reassures Alex that they only need to maintain the gap to Magnussen. And this is when it starts getting a little bit close, because you have Alonso, who had pitted a second time on brand new hard tires, charging up from behind, and you had Magnussen, who was seemingly pushing on his hard tires, which were older than Alex's hard tires, but still the Haas seemed to be the faster car. So for the last 20 laps or so, Alex had to maintain that gap to Magnussen while watching out for Alonso behind. Now Colapinto tried his best to hold off Alonso, but he only managed to hold him off for about a lap or so, but I think in the end that did enough. And for the last 5 laps or so, it started getting tight. Magnussen was about 7, 8, 9 seconds ahead. Alonso was coming up 3.5 seconds, 2 seconds, and then on the last lap it was about 8.9 seconds to Magnussen ahead and only about 1.3 to Alonso behind. But fortunately for Alex, Fernando didn't manage to get within DRS in the final lap, and he managed to finish 9.1 seconds behind Magnussen. So he managed to keep he managed to jump up into P9, get 2 points for his finish, matching his best of the season so far. But this was a pretty hectic race, and I implore you guys who have F1 TV or are, I don't know what Sky calls it, Sky Premium or something like that, where you can watch the onboards. After the races, go back, pick a driver, watch their onboards, and listen to the interaction between the driver and the engineer, because it's such an interesting look into how the races are kind of managed. I know on the Sky stream or the F1 TV stream, you kind of just they kind of focus on the front of the race. Now if Verstappen is like 30 seconds ahead, then they'll focus on the fight for the podium positions, but then you kind of miss out on these battles in the middle of the pack and towards the back of the pack. And this week specifically, I think if you go back and watch Alex's onboard and listen to him and his team trying to figure out how to finish as high as possible in this race, I think you would very much enjoy it. Now I've been doing it for Alex's races for like 5 years now, and most of the time, especially since he has joined Williams, it's been rather boring, as they've kind of just been fighting for like P15 and P16. But this week was a very fun experience to have, watching him and his team try to manage finishing in P9. And yeah, like I said, if you have the chance to go back and watch his onboard. Now, am I happy to see that Williams finished P9? Yes, I am. I don't know if the upgrades from Zandvoort have really done enough, as K-Mag seemed to be pushing on his second stint from the moment he overtook Alex, and he was still faster than Alex, and even though Williams had been managing the tires for the longest time, for pretty much the second part of that race. So I don't really know if Williams is going to be able to keep this up at Baku, which is a little bit different than Monza, as Baku has that second sector, the castle section, that requires a bit of downforce as well, and is not just low downforce track. So, but Williams does have another update coming to the car, and they really weren't quite sure if they were going to get it before they went to Baku. So if they can get it before Baku, we might expect the Williams to fight for points again, but if not, I don't know, because Magnussen seemed really pacey, and he's the slower of the two Haas cars. And Hülkenberg only finished so far back because he came together with Ricciardo, and I think he came together with both Racing Bulls earlier on in the race. So if Hulkenberg could have had a clean race, and if Magnussen didn't have that 10-second penalty, I don't know if Williams even finishes in the points at Monza. But it should be an interesting race, at least for P9 and P10 at Azerbaijan anyway. So looking forward to that. Hopefully Alex can keep his pace up. Now, I've seen a lot of people asking on social media what was the deal with the front left tires. And if you made it this far into this podcast, I suppose you can call it, the reason why the front left tires was such a limiting factor for most teams is Monza is a clockwise circuit. There are more left-hand turns than there are right-hand turns. But if you look at the track map, you have Biasono, I believe it's called, the first long right-hander after the first chicane. You have Parabolica, and then you have Lesmo 1 and Lesmo 2, which are all really fast left-handers. So the load is going to go into that front left tire, meaning higher temperatures, higher deg, and the front left tire is going to be the limiting tire at a track like Monza. At a track like Baku, because there are so many traction zones there, the limiting tires will be the rear tires at that track. So yeah, that's the reason why at Monza everybody was having trouble with the front lefts, especially Alex in the Williams car. He was having to manage through first and second Lesmo the entire race, and it was such a pain watching him drive through there because you could just see the gaps to Magnussen and Alonso, or the gap to Magnussen getting bigger and the gap from Albon to Alonso getting smaller in like the last 10 laps because Alex was having so many issues with that front left tire. But all in all, it was a very productive race weekend, very good race weekend. It's good to see them scoring points again. Good to see Franco staying close to Alex. I think Franco was a lot closer to Alex than Logan has ever been, except for maybe 1 or 2 races. So it looks like Colapinto should be able to perform better than Logan would in the last 9 or so races. So it's a very good sign for Williams. Their updates are obviously working. Hopefully the next update at Baku will work as well. And now we kind of have a better driver to measure Alex up against, as he was always beating Logan by so much. So yeah, Monza was a very good race. I was very on the edge of my seat. I hate to say it, but I was listening to it while I was at work and found myself peeking at my phone on many occasions to check on the gaps in the last 20 laps. But it's good to see Alex and Williams finally have something to celebrate. So I figured I'd put this up here for you guys who may have missed the interaction between him and his race engineers and miss his race while F1 was focusing on the race at the front. So there we go, another episode of the Alex Albon Superfan Show. If you guys enjoyed, feel free to leave a like, comment, or subscribe. Stay tuned for more. Remember to eat bok choy, and I'll see you in the next one, which hopefully won't be too long because I definitely need to see him scoring more points. Alright, I'll see you guys.